Dial Models Workshop.
Hi, it's Yeji.
And Clint.
Hey, it's Larry. You are entering Models Workshop After Hours, a modeling podcast where we talk about miniatures, model painting, and we cuss a lot. If you can be offended, we're probably going to offend you. Then you're going to laugh, and you're going to feel bad. And then we'll offend you again, and then you'll laugh again. You see the pattern. So kick out, sit back, grab your brush, grab your paints, and get ready to have some fun. Hey, model workers, guess who's back? The jack with the cast on his leg, because he's a dumbass. Yep, it's Larry, and I'm back on the podcast with the light crew today. It's just James and I hanging out in the workshop. We're going to talk about some paint and stuff that we're working on and stuff we're having fun. We're going to talk about the oh-so-fabulous stuff they talked about last week with the painting stuff, because James got his order in, and he looks so fabulous. So, James, we were discussing, and it's been about a good solid month since I've been on. I had some stuff come up. For those who don't know, who haven't seen on social media, I broke my leg. For anyone who is medically inclined, I sheared the tip off of my fibula. I can't remember the exact name of the break, but I dislocated my ankle. I broke the tip off of my fibula, and I displaced the tibia. In layman's terms, what I did was my toe got caught in the grass while I was rollerblading, body went forward, the law of momentum, yada, yada, yada. My ankle twisted to the side. I fell backwards. I kind of flipped when in a half-ass splits maneuver, and whenever I flipped backwards, I came down backwards on my leg. My ankle did a 90-degree snap to the right, stayed that way, and when it did, it cracked the tip off the little bone in the lower part of your leg and shoved the large bone over. It's normally 4 millimeters. I shoved it over to like 11 millimeters, which translates into I really knocked it off center. So, actually about a week and 1 day ago, I went in for surgery. I actually got out of the hospital 1 week ago. They put a plate in my ankle as well as 6 screws and a bolt to hold everything together. I'm still in a cast. I had to hobble my fat ass down into the studio, which was not fun in the least, but I love you guys, and if I hadn't come down, it would have been James by himself, which would have translated into 2 hours of just random rambling, because I'm sure he would have talked. I'm not sure what the hell he would have talked about, but he would have talked.
We would have talked about something fabulous, something gorgeous.
Fabulous.
Something so gorgeous you couldn't even handle it.
So, yeah, last podcast, I heard you guys talked about utilizing makeup containers for miniature paint.
Yeah, it started out with, I was telling about the Megamo oil brushers, and I was trying to figure out if this was a custom thing they had made, because as most people that watch Facebook Lives know, I love using those things. It's about a 4 or 5 inch container, got a little screw top with a brush in it, almost like the kind of brush you would see in a Tamiya glue container, that super glue you brush on.
Right.
And all of a sudden, Google races ensued. And it was to find out,
clickety.
okay, were these just some kind of eyeliner containers? So basically, they're like modified eyeliner containers. And I thought, well, nice. All the ones that I saw had the little crazy, like, looks like a rake for your eyeliner thing. And she said, no, I think maybe you want nail polish containers.
Ooh, what about lip liner containers?
Well, she said, Jim, don't you have to put those things in a little case thing to make them stand upright? I said, yeah. She says, well, nail polish jars are designed not to fall over. And you already have like 17,000 nail polish racks, don't you? It's what I use for actually holding out my miniatures while I'm painting them. Because they're all...
See, that's what I use from all my paints. I have a couple 120 racks sitting on my wall to hold paints in.
She said, why don't you think about those? And we were, because initially it started out with looking for some kind of plastic brush cheap plastic brush that I could glue inside like a dropper bottle container. And they said, no, Jim, we could just scrap the dropper bottles all together and we'll get a bottle that has that in there. So she found, I think it was $15, this really nice set of, I think it was 15 milliliter nail polish bottles nice and square, nice and squat, not going to fall over. Not just with the brush, but with the stainless steel agitator, and even with little funnels. And
Nice.
And the box holds 20 of these things, and it's got this foam that holds each bottle in place. It doesn't move. So you could take this thing on the road with you. You could hold it upside down. Your paint bottles, which are glass, I'm sure they're not very breakable, but they're not going to be clanking around inside there. So I looked at that for $15. I got to get more of these because we must have spent 20 minutes talking about all the different dropper bottles that just you can unclog them and you push them and like 2 seconds later they're clogged again. I have a collection of these T-shaped pins, 20 of them in each workstation because these stupid dropper bottles, doesn't matter what the company is, it's all equal opportunity sinning as far as I'm concerned.
That is very true. Actually, Mocha, at one point, a friend of ours, what she did is she took one of those T-pins and glued it into a key holder. So you were able to make your own custom dropper bottle poker medieval. So if you had a favorite character, like I bought a Donatello one, and you use like a little 2-part epoxy, mix it in there, and you smash it together, and you have a T-pin, and it's for poking holes in your dropper bottles.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it kind of evolved from, well, sort of a half-ass solution to a whole new technology. And then, of course, it became a whole new line of fabulous products because this is going to be like the ultimate pinky up version of the painting pyramid here.
Right.
This is exclusive beauty products. So we basically spent about the last hour and something of the podcast looking through Amazon and all the Maybelline products to see what was available. And it just kept getting more fabulous.
Maybe it's Maybelline.
The other thing, and something totally unrelated, I just noticed that the Secret Weapon heat paints, as we speculated, they're really designed for metallic paints. You try and put them on non-metallic stuff, it just looks like I don't know what you're doing. But yesterday was the first chance I had an opportunity to try those with metallics. I went, okay, this is how you should use those suckers. So I'm looking forward to doing that a little bit more with the metallic paints. Because I think that came up a little bit too. We talked about all these rival camps. That it used to just be non-metallic versus metallic. Then, like, metallic has split up into 2 or 3 factions, and non-metallic is split up into 2 or 3 factions. Why do there have to be factions?
It's ridiculous. I understood foundation paints when they came out. I was like, okay, foundation paints make sense because that just translates into it's more highly pigmented. So that's good to know. It's good to know that the paint that you're about to use is going to be thicker and it's going to have more coverage. But then it seems like they're naming shit just to put out a different paint. I swear, it's like it's the same shit with just a slightly different name, so they can sell you another bottle of the exact same colored stuff or something that is like quite literally like 1 syllable different in the name, and it's just like and it's not just, I can't blame just one company for it. I can't go, oh, that's a GW thing. Now I will say that it was a GW who started it, but it's definitely not a GW who is only doing it, because even my favorite type of paint, Warcolors, they've got their heavy pigment, their transparents, and everything else. Here's a clue, everyone. If you want to make a paint a transparent paint, add a little bit of medium to it. Clear medium. That's it. That's all you have to do. Literally. Add a little bit of clear medium to it. You've got yourself a transparent paint.
That's how people get so confused. And when we talked about, I think I kind of rail on this now. Anytime I have a microphone in front of me, the companies, when they do these things, they give them the worst possible names, or at least the most confusing names. Like
GW is horrible about that too.
Even the Reaper Clear paints, I had no idea what they were for the better part of 8 years. I thought they were clear, like transparent paints. There's nothing clear about them. They are super intense pigmented paints. They're basically, look, here's the red that is just like pure red. There is nothing else in this. Here's the pure yellow, the pure processed blue. They should have just called them pure blue or high intensity blue, but they called them clear. And everyone, when I mention this, they all say, but that's for a wash? I said, no, you can. You can thin them down with water, and now they're transparent and clear. And if you put any kind of lighter opaque paint with them, they're not clear at all. They're actually a really high coverage because the pigment is so intense and pure in those things. So just and just in with the weathering paints. I don't know how many times in every blog post or when I answer questions, it's like, no, it's not just for weathering. You can use it for regular paint. I use them for all my skin tones. I use them for so many other things that have absolutely nothing to do with weathering. They work great for weathering. Nothing wrong with that. I've used them for that too. But the name literally gives people this notion that it's like illegal to use it for anything else. Like there'll be some kind of paint police that come along. The sirens will sound. They'll take away your brushes and spank you a couple times. Well, I don't know. Some folks might like that. But they are convinced that, no, this is the name of it. I can only use it for this.
Right.
And I guess I'm wondering how much of it is, well, that's kind of what companies wanted to have happen, or is this like the law of unintended consequences or naming?
There, honestly, at this point, there's no telling. It could be either. You know, it could be. Man, I don't know. It's just, it seems like every year, just everything gets more and more confusing. It's like, back in the day, I remember washes, inks, and people screwed, and I'll be the first to admit, I screwed up washes and inks. And this is a prime example of maybe we should not overcomplicate things, but we had washes, we had inks, we had regular paints. I think and we had smelly primer. That was it. We had 3 different types of paints, and honestly, inks were a confusing factor for pretty much everyone. Everyone was like, what are these inks and what do you use them for? You know, so it's just, it's crazy that we're wanting to make things even more difficult now. It's kind of like, why? Why are we making shit just so complicated? Why can't we just calm it down a little bit, make it where we keep it nice and simple? But no, let's just make it as complicated as possible.
It seems that way with brushes, even. You know, there's people.
Oh my god!
It used first. I thought people argued about politics. Then I thought, well, now they argue about movies. But now people are unfriending each other over brushes.
Fucking artist opus brushes. That is the biggest fucking sham ever. Oh my god! I could not believe that people fell for that marketing scheme. That was. Oh my goodness, I hated every moment of that. The first dealing I ever had with the opus artist people, they were rude as shit. I was asking them some questions so I could talk about it on the podcast. And then I was like, well, you know what? Fuck you. I ain't doing shit for you. And then I heard a rumor that these brushes were nothing but fucking what's
Rosemary and something?
Rosemary and Co. These damn brushes are nothing but Rosemary and Company brushes. They're nothing even special about them. They have a white handle. That's what's special about them. They have a white damn handle on them.
I've never used the Rosemary brushes. Are they...
For you, Jim, they're too high end. For everybody else, they're the budget brush. For you, they're too high end.
They must cost more than 30 cents.
Yes, they do. They are about $4 or $5, I think, for a standard, like, one. So they're kind of like the mid-range brush between your super cheap brush. They're Kolinsky Sable. What else? No, they're good brushes. But the fact that people are paying quite literally Winsor Newton or more Series 7 prices for these brushes, which are Rosemary and Company Series 3 or Series 33 brushes. And, you know, it kills me because there's a couple people that like, these brushes are so wicked awesome, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, well, let's see. And then as time went on and other people got their hands on these brushes, the truth came out. And people are like, these brushes are not really that good. They're not bad, but they're not that good. They're definitely not worth the price. And this is after people were starting to get them from their friends and, here, buddy, I got these. Why don't you try them out? That type of deal. And, they started getting them. And a lot of people were like, I'm not all that impressed with these. Why are everyone freaking out so badly about these? They're not that good. And apparently they're just Rosemary and Company brushes that have been renamed and are nothing special.
Because I wouldn't know if it was just regular conversations, whatever, but I think people, they would ask me. So, and all kidding aside about how I use the craft brushes and stuff, they say, well, look, honest engine here. Do brushes make you better? Can they make you better? I said, well, unfortunately, no. They can pretty much only make you worse. That's kind of the law of the land. You can take anything. I mean, the same people that make sculptures out of garbage, quite literally, and can make fantastic art. You can give another person the finest chunk of marble, you give them a hammer, and all they're going to have is just a pile of rocks.
I will say, I think the best way to describe your increased skill with a brush, it's not so much an increase in your skill. It's not going to make you better. But if you're a good artist and you can do a good job with a shitty brush, once you get your hands on a good brush, it's going to be a lot easier for you to utilize your skill with the better brush. I mean, yes, you're a prime example, Jim, that you don't have to have an amazing brush to do a good job. But to be truthful, you are kind of the exception, not the rule.
Well, I see people that once they get these, they sort of feel a little bit liberated, because I still use the the Winsor Newton, the Series 7s for eyes or freehand or super detailed things. But those things, they're only going to last so long. I mean, the more you beat those things up, the less fine they're going to be. And when people try these, they don't feel like, oh my gosh, every time I use this brush, I'm destroying it. I got to make sure I get my 20 hours out of this brush or whatever. And it seems like do your dirty work with the cheap ass brush, and then do your finish work with the good stuff. Because I just keep thinking, like with sculpting tools, we don't do a lot of it, so we don't invest in. I'm sure there's other sculptors that swear by those shapers, and they have like 5 different hardnesses of each shaper. But we're not really sculptors. We wish we could do more of it, but it's paint or sculpt. It's one or the other. Unfortunately, we have to choose.
Honestly, I would say having a soft tip and a hard tip, that would be cool. Like, I got into art recently, like actual drawing pictures. And art's the same way. Like drawing, you have leads, and you have like 9 different hardnesses of lead on each side. So 9 soft, 9 hards, and stuff in between there. And I look at it just like I did my brushes. I don't need to buy all 19 different leads, even though they're not super expensive. They're like $3 a container of lead. And one good thing is, as far as I know, if you buy lead from one company that's a 3B, it's pretty much the same all across. Now, I'm sure someone's going to go, oh no, you have to buy this brand because it does this less, yada, yada, yada. Whatever. The basic thing is that you don't need... That's another thing that really kind of irked me about the Artist Opus bullshit, was that you could only really buy it all or nothing. I don't need a 000. I don't need... If anything, I wanted the size 2. And that's another thing that was irked me about it. Was size 2 was the biggest they went. And I use like a size 3 or size 4 for my typical paintbrush. And, you know, I have every Winsor & Newton from 000 all the way up to size 4. And I may have a size 5 over there. I use 2 of them. I use my size 4 and I use my size 1. That's it. That's it. You don't need 15 brushes. You need 2. 2. And that's for painting, your general painting. Of course, you're going to need a dry brush and a stipple brush, and a nice flat brush is usually a pretty nice investment as well. But barring those, and your dry brush is usually just a shitty brush. You don't want anything nice. Same with your stipple brush. And the half brush, since you're using it to paint large flat areas, it doesn't have to be high quality either, because you're painting large flat areas. It doesn't matter if it's Kolinsky, it doesn't matter if it's synthetic and it's a little bushy, because a wore out half inch also makes it an exceptionally good dry brush too. But you don't need, like, I have 20 different Kolinsky brushes, like no shit, like 20 different Kolinsky brushes. Don't need that many. Absolutely do not need that many. And I fell into the rabbit hole of, I gotta have them all. I Pokemon'd myself. Gotta buy them all. And you don't have to do that. You don't have to sit there and go and buy all of the brushes. You literally only need 2. You need 1 detail brush, whether it's a size 1 or a 0. I don't know. If you have a good brush, you really don't need to go smaller than a 0. If you are, you're really defeating the purpose of a large body brush. And then the second brush is the largest one you can paint with. If the largest one you can paint with is a size 2, use a size 2. If it's a size 3, use a size 3. And you always want to train yourself to try to get to the biggest brush you could possibly use for like 90% of the mini. And for that, I use a size 4 personally. 1, it speeds up your painting. 2, it makes it where brush strokes are less visible. And also going that route where I have a size 4 and a size 1 and those are the brushes I use, in the long run, it's cheap, because I'm not buying a whole bunch of brushes that are literally going to sit in my brush rack. I'll tell you what, my brush case looks fucking sweet. It looks fucking great, because I have like size 000, 000, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, half-inch flat Kolinsky with Series 7, a liner Series 7, a size 2 miniature, and yada, 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 all the way down. It looks sweet, but it's also a $200 investment I didn't need to make.
People would love my collection of green handle brushes. There's dozens upon dozens of them, and the only thing that distinguishes them is how worn out the tip is, or if it's chopped off, or how much super glue or oxide paste it has on the ferrule. That's how I distinguish my collection, baby. That's yeah. I can tell exactly. All right, this one's got enough wear. It's my homemade filbert brush. I was actually, well, yeah, I used to, the painting pyramid videos, I looked at that thing and I went, holy smokes, I used to use filberts all the time. And I haven't used a filbert in years, because I realized that these green handle brushes, when they wear down enough and you flatten out and spread out those bristles, it becomes a hybrid filbert brush. It's like a filbert and a round. It's a found brush or something, or a Wilbert. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's a whole freaking new brush all on its own. And I love these things. It's a filbert brush. It's a filbert brush that's softer than a filbert brush. Has all the advantages of that. It holds more paint than a filbert brush, because the bristles are a lot longer, probably 2 to 3 times as long, and it doesn't go frayed and dog-eared like a filbert brush would right away. And it can just take more punishment than a filbert brush ever could. And it just also happens to be the same 30-cent brush. And you really can't find 30-cent filbert brushes. You just make them yourself just by wearing down your brush. And I certainly do that quick enough. But yeah, I've seen other people too, where, now of course these are folks that maybe have more money to spend on this, more disposable income. And it seems like every little magic product that comes along, they have to have it, because, well, social media, I guess, also tells them that, well, everybody else has this, I gotta have it. But it also maybe says, if I got this thing, maybe it'll be the one magic tool. It's that tool that I need that could either save me time or I could do something that I couldn't do before. And I'm sure there's some tools that facilitate that, maybe, not like the texture rollers or some of these other products that really do allow you to do something you couldn't just sculpt. It'd be really tough to just sculpt that texture out of hand. But there's other things that I see people getting, and I just wonder, do they realize that that's really not, it's just not going to facilitate what they think it will? And I'm sure there is a certain amount of, well, I have this, or so-and-so has that. They're using it. I got to try it. And I don't know if that's still the case, or if it's actually just getting more magnified now. But between all of these Kickstarters, I just want to know where people are getting the money for all of these things, because I know the Mantic had theirs. There's, I think what's the name of the company that's going to start doing theirs? Limbo Miniatures or something. Then you have all things like this brush Kickstarter. And it's like, where's people just have way more money to spend than I thought they did. It's scary. I don't know. Not quite sure how there's this many hundreds of thousands of hours to go around in what's supposed to be a very small miniature painting community.
Yeah, I've been a big proponent of we're killing the miniature industry by oversaturating the market. There's a difference. There's a fine line between lots of choices and too many choices. I mean, you get to a point where you're just literally trying to get the same dollars that 20 other people are trying to get. And it also runs into people like frickin' Cool Mini who run a damn Kickstarter like every week. It's like, come on, guys, let someone else have it. And as much as I like Ron, even him, I mean, with Mantic, I can almost say, okay, I kind of understand because he is a relatively small company. But Cool Mini, I don't believe that they're a small company at all.
Yeah, not maybe 2003, but certainly not after the 17th Kickstarter campaign.
No. They're in their 40s now. I think their newest one was like 44 or 45. It was, they were doing a Kickstarter once every like 6 months or 5 months. Now it's almost to the point where they're doing one every 2 months. And it's crazy. Now IDW, I really wish between IDW and Steve Jackson Games, those guys seriously need to chill the hell out too. I am a huge fan of Munchkin, and I'm a huge Ninja Turtles fan. And I got hit with an IDW and Steve Jackson Kickstarter. It was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Munchkin. So I was like, oh, gotta get it. And it wasn't ridiculous. I was like, all right, cool. And then, like, literally the day it ended, frickin' Munchkin dropped a Kickstarter for a new expansion. I'm like, what the fuck? So I was like, okay, I play a lot of Munchkin with my kids, and I own all the Munchkin stuff. So I was like, well, okay, let me go ahead and back it so I can get the special promo cards. So I was like, all right, cool. And what else did I back? I backed something else, and it was relatively small. Oh, what was it? It's just been crazy. And then today, IDW dropped yet another Kickstarter. And I'm just like, everyone, please stop or slow down or something.
Because if it's just perpetual Kickstarters, that you have to be able to stand up on your own without the aid of always having to do a Kickstarter. Because I think some people, they realize that you just can't be never-ending Kickstarters. At some point, they have to end. You just have to have a regular sort of, business plan, kind of.
Well, okay, so I backed the Munchkin Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Then I backed the Red Dragon Inn Munchkin expansion, which was actually Red Dragon Inn with the Munchkin characters. So it's its own standalone. It's for Red Dragon Inn, so it's a completely different game. I backed that one because the kids and I haven't played it yet, and it's been on my to-get list. And since I'm a Munchkin fan, it's like, oh, might as well do that. And then I backed Super Chibi for Brian's. And then I am currently backing the new IDW one, too. I don't know if I'm going to run with it. But damn, it does look good.
I guess, now I don't know if this was done, I don't think it was done via Kickstarter or not, but there is a new version. Apparently they made a bunch of these over the years. A new version of History of the World. It's a board game that we played with our friends, but their copy must be from the 1980s or something. I mean, it looks old. And it really, really looks old, and half the cards are bent and ripped and everything. And it's just, now you're used to the Fantasy Flight organization of a game board. And this is, you could tell it was many years before they really decided on how game boards should be designed, especially games for adults that were these more complicated type games that take 4-ish hours to play. And it just, I didn't realize they're on like version number 6 now. And I don't know if that was something that was maybe a recent Kickstarter. It wasn't Fantasy Flight Games either. Z-Man or something like that.
Well, Z-Man's a company.
Okay, I was like, what the heck was the name of this thing? Z-Man. That was the name of the company that made, I guess, this new version of History of the World. And I think it's $70-ish or something like that, or at least it was on Amazon. Yeah, if you get it from we saw it on another site, it would have been $65 and then $5 to ship, or $60 and $10. Anyway, it came out to be basic about the same price. And it would be neat, but how much different is it? And has it just been dumbed down and simplified over 6 versions? I had no idea that they've done 6 versions of this game.
Oh. If anyone hears clicking in the background, I don't have a horse in the studio. It's me. It's my cast tapping on the ground.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so hopefully by time we record this upcoming week, I will actually, or not this upcoming week, but the next time we record, I should be out of the cast. I go back in a week. On the 24th, and they cut this one off. And then I have a walking boot that they're going to put me in. Oh, cool story. So, I drink Death Wish coffee, which for the people who don't know, Death Wish is reportedly the strongest coffee on the market. It has like 400 and some milligrams of caffeine per cup. It's pretty fucking ridiculous. But it doesn't hit you. Here's the cool thing about it. It doesn't hit you like all of a sudden you're like, and it could be just because I'm really used to having a lot of caffeine. But it doesn't give me the jitters like I figured, a 12-ounce, 400 milligram caffeine cup of coffee should. So it's kind of a mellow buzz. And I think I'm going to need to get a dehumidifier down here in my studio. That's definitely a purchase. Sidetrack, sorry. So I hit Death Wish Coffee up on Twitter. I was like, hey guys, I just broke my leg because I tried inline skating, parentheses, badly apparently. And I was wondering if I could get a sticker from you guys to put on my walking splint. So I could, it'd be like you guys signed my cast. And it was really cool because they actually tweeted me back. And they're like, yeah, absolutely, give me your address. We'll send you out some stickers. And I got a card from them. I got a Get Well card from Death Wish Coffee telling me, hey, get well, have a speedy and in parentheses, highly caffeinated healing, get better soon. P.S. Send us some pictures. And they sent me like 4 stickers. I was so stoked. I was like, this is so fucking cool. I was just like, this is the coolest shit ever. Because, I wasn't expecting a reply back from them, and not only did I get a reply back, I got a get well better card or get well soon card from them.
But that would be, caffeine definitely facilitates bone fusion, of course.
Yeah, I've actually been cutting back on coffee consumption, or caffeine consumption, because I used to drink like 2 or 3 energy drinks when I was in the truck. And now that I'm sitting on my butt, which I get to do for 10 weeks, I'm off the job for 10 freaking weeks, at least at the minimum 10 weeks, up to 12. So I'm off work, sitting around the house, and I am almost caught up on all of my TV. And now I'm starting to watch the movies that I've been missing out on. I'm just like, oh, and I have at least 8 weeks of no weight bearing. So I'm on crutches for 8 whole weeks. And I'm just about ready to lose my fucking mind.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, I don't know, it's like you're just gonna have to chop those legs off, and we'll have to make you one of those little like wheel things they use for babies or something like that, so you can just kind of push yourself around on one of those.
I actually looked into them. They're $125. They're called knee scooters. I looked into them. So yeah, they're $125, and it would be great because I could actually, I have a wheelchair, but I don't know if anyone here has ever tried to roll a wheelchair, like actually do the thing. And I don't have the right muscle structure for it. I'm slowly getting that muscle structure, but my town is not set up for a wheelchair either. Its sidewalks just suck. And you can't do crutches for a fucking mile. Not me, at least. I'm good to get to the end of the block on my crutches without killing myself. At least with the wheelchair, I have a place to sit down.
Yeah. Well, now, hopefully, it's going to sound weird, but does it affect when you're trying to paint or whatever? Because sometimes where your feet go, it doesn't sound like much until you try to actually paint for an extended period of time, and you find out that your whole body position has been so screwed up for so long. Now you're very sore after trying to paint for a few hours.
Well, I'm going to tell you honestly, this is probably going to be a short podcast because my leg is already freaking screaming at me. I can't sit, like actually sit in a chair for an extended amount of time, or my leg starts screaming at me. Like the flow of blood with it being below my heart just causes it to throb so bad.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, I know for me, I have to actually at a certain point kneel for an hour or two as I'm painting. I got these knee pad things, because if I just try and sit and be hunched over, all of a sudden my shoulders start screaming, and I have to be able to paint for 10, 12, 16 hours a day. And I can't imagine if I had to have one leg sticking out straight forward. And it always had to be that way. That would make painting difficult, to say the least.
Sorry about that. My headphones clicked. I was actually rotating to try to put my leg up a little bit. Yeah, because I paint kind of hunched over. So having to have my legs straight out will probably really bug me. I've been doing a lot of cleaning. I'm doing a quick commission for my local gaming shop, putting some terrain together from GW, and I'm not doing like hardcore clean, but I'm cleaning off like the really horrible bad mold lines, like giving them one good scrape around all the seams and sanding them down a little bit on the smooth seams. And so I can do that just sitting on the couch in my recliner, and I'll have like I'm putting together 2 Imperial sectors. And for those who don't know and haven't seen this, yes, it is an expensive kit, but holy shit, do you get a ton of stuff in that kit. It's ridiculous how much stuff you get in that thing. I was like, wow, it was impressive. Once I pulled everything off the sprue, it took me like a good 3 hours to just de-sprue everything, or 2 hours. I think it took me 2 hours just to de-sprue it. I was just like, wow, this is crazy. And then it took me like 3 hours to clean one of them, and I have 2 of them. So I've just been basically sitting on my ass doing a lot of cleaning. But I do have my air compressor, and some of my paints and stuff are already upstairs. And I'm in the process. And then my friends or my friends. Well, they're my friends too, but my kids are slowly bringing up my painting studio upstairs for me. The only thing we can't have upstairs is my podcast, because as loud as it may be down here in my basement, upstairs it would be ridiculously loud.
Yeah. Now, fortunately for us, we both do the podcasting thing, so we can, the quiet sign, you almost need like a little on-air button that goes on. Well, we're almost
right.
We're almost perpetually on air in one way or another. It's actually the other reason why I do stuff really late at night, because I can be doing that Facebook Live session. It doesn't matter if she's turning on another computer or if she's trying to live stream or do something else. It doesn't matter. We're not fighting over bandwidth. We're not trying to close sound out, although I have found those sound tiles on Amazon. I think you get a 16 square foot area. That's maybe $18 or something. So I was thinking of those, not so much for this area, but where I'm doing the battle reports, because I can't wear a lapel mic. If I do, it's going to be hooked to something else, and it's going to catch all the terrain like a gigantic fishing hook and take it to places like the floor where I don't want it to be. So that's something I'll have to do, is get some of those tiles, and I think it's not a huge problem because the ceiling is so low in the basement, but I think it can maybe cut down on ambient white noise or whatever goes on in the background, having those tiles. Who knows, maybe it won't make a damn bit of difference.
They actually do. I have plans for a new painting desk, and it's going to have those tiles built into the painting desk, I believe.
Because I've seen a few people's first thought of it. I forget who I was watching, but I could see in the background, it must have been out like one of those English houses where it's got the gabled roof, so the roof on the inside has all these angles all over the place. Well, I would notice 4 to 6 of these tiles just kind of stuck on each of these angled surfaces. Wasn't covering the whole thing, but it was covering part of it. And what the hell are those? And then I kind of, okay, they must be sound tiles or something. So I went to Amazon and just clicked on sound tiles, and not only were there several different types, but you can get the same type in 8 different colors, which I just figured they were all black. But nope, they're pretty much every color in between. They're white, they're red, blue, you name it. All kinds of different colors.
The colors doesn't make a difference. That's literally for people who live cast and want to have pretty patterns in the back and stuff.
I was just wondering, do they come in green screen green? Now that would be an interesting double duty.
I think so. I'm not joking. Well, here's the thing: green screen, quote air quotes here, is nowadays they use green screen because a lot of people don't wear green. So I think that was the real reason why it started off as green. But if you have any chroma, you can use any chroma. If you want to use blue, the only difference is you can never wear a blue shirt while you're doing it. But you can chroma key blue, you can chroma key red. And I think there's other reasons, because natural light contains reds and blues, that you don't use it, and that's another reason why they use greens. But you can actually chroma key any color. You could technically chroma key black if you wanted to. But yeah, they make green screen stuff for everything, like freaking chairs. And the cool thing about it is, I think you can still put a green screen over the tiles, in front of the acoustic tiles. And Newer actually has a green screen curtain for $16, and it's big. It's really big.
Because I was actually thinking about, I have that painted backdrop already, which works fantastic for the Ardennes forest. But once I started getting into these more urban type combat things or the winter stuff, I'm just wondering, do I do a painted backdrop for each one? Well, the urban stuff I wanted to do kind of a forced perspective, but I was wondering, could I actually take the green screen and be able to essentially just Photoshop a background and sort of supersede the need for a painted backdrop by just green screening that. And when it goes beyond the table, all they're seeing is some kind of, landscape behind it instead of me having to paint a new landscape. I don't know if that's really going to work the way I think it will. Maybe, maybe not. Because there could be a problem with perspective too, where it looks great from straight on, but as soon as you step to an angle, well, now you've got a straight backdrop with an angled table. Just something told me that wasn't going to work very well. It would be interesting. I know somebody was doing, I don't know if it was X-Wing or one of the Fantasy Flight Star Wars games, and they green screened behind the table, and it essentially had a graphic, and there was like a score thing, so you could keep track of how many points were or how many hit points were left on a different unit or something like that. So that kind of was interesting. The only reason this comes to mind is I just finished editing another battle report, which the first one took 18 hours, the second one took about 8, and this one, I think I've got it down to about 4-ish now. Well, a lot of the graphics are made, but even just organizing these sections. When you try and tell people what goes into filming one of these things, they just assume you point the camera at the table and you start rolling dice. It's like, no, not quite. Here's this giant notebook that has each segment that I filmed down to the last second, because there's no way to name these segments. The only way I can identify them is by how long they are. I first learned that when I was doing the painting pyramid videos. It's like, what are all these different video segments? Oh, it's a good thing I had a piece of paper there and wrote down what I filmed in each one. Because it's amazing how you can forget. Because I just filmed these things a week and a half ago, and by the next day, I had already forgotten what 2/3 of each segment was.
Funny how that happens, huh?
Yeah, it's the nature of the game, too, with that order dice mechanic. If it was most other games, where it's just, okay, one person bends over for half an hour while the other person drives, and then vice versa, this is constantly changing. You pull an order dice, you have no idea who's going to get to go for that order dice. It may be 3 in a row, it may be 7, it may go back and forth, so you can't just pull an order dice and know what you're going to do. I remember the first time I saw some of the ones online, and inevitably it was they pull out an order dice, and as the person stares blankly ahead, they say, do you know what you're going to do with that? No. And then there's a quick cut to the camera, and then they show up again with the order dice and what the person's going to do. I don't know if there's many other games like that, where it's so, you have no idea who's going to get to go next, that you're actually so surprised. It's like, okay, what are you going to do? And I don't know. I didn't think I was going to get an order dice. I didn't think I was going to get 4 in a row. I think I've seen as many as 8 in a row. Which can actually create a whole bunch of problems, because now the other person can react. If whatever you did wasn't a big honking success, now you got a big old bullseye on you.
Right.
It's been very fun, though. I wanted to do these things for the longest time, and there was a lot of research involved, and even just getting the equipment. I just film them on the phone. Actually, it's the best video camera I've ever had, because the viewfinder is fantastic. It's A, full color, and B, full sized. I can hold it at any angle that I need, instead of a video camera where it either has to be on a tripod or you have to hold it a certain way. So the little phone, I can actually stick it down inside the terrain to videotape figures that are just hanging out inside the terrain. It's like, hey guys, what you doing in here?
Yeah, I do like that. I wish, honestly, GW and 40K utilize a system where it was like that versus the, hey, everyone does everything and then they switch.
It really, you cannot, it would reduce those super combos where this does this and then everything dies. There's no such thing here, because you may only get to do a part of that. And if you do try and set up one of those gigantic combos, you better either pray that you're going to get a whole bunch of order dice in a row or that it works. Because if you did get a bunch of order dice in a row, now the other person, they're going to have just as many, if not more. And you can't move anymore. You're done. You cannot respond anymore. So you can't do that one big devastating thing that's just going to wipe the other guy off the board. It's almost impossible because you cannot guarantee a chain of those things together to do something like that. And there's a lot of other reasons why I enjoy doing this. Obviously, the historical side. I know that tournament that I did, I think, that was the other thing we talked about in the last podcast, was my first tournament in 4 years. And it was really nice to look at the table and go, I know exactly what the hell that is. I don't even need to look at your army book.
That was the tournament that wasn't advertised, wasn't it?
That was the one where nobody knew about it. This is Adepticon, so it's only a matter of weeks before this event's going to happen. And a week later, someone goes, hey, in the Chicago Bolt Action Group, does anybody know that there's a Bolt Action tournament at Little Wars in Chicago? No, what's this? So you went onto the website, which, 1843 called, they want their website back. I mean, actually, I'm thinking this might be pre-War of 1812, this website. Put the history and historical website. Well, nobody knew this event was going on, and when you looked at the website, there was no information. It wasn't listed under events. Even when we got there to the convention, it wasn't listed under events. It was like this super secret thing. So
super secret squirrel.
So somebody posted onto a few of the Bolt Action pages, said, hey, anybody from Warlord know that there's a tournament going on? And they sort of said, well, yeah, there's a tournament. And then there really wasn't much more information beyond that. So needless to say, the turnout was kind of low because nobody knew what was going on. And what's amazing is that Adepticon is put on by the Chicago Bolt Action crew. And they didn't even know about it. They were there putting on a whole weekend of Adepticon events with the Warlord folks who were also there for... Yeah, it was a weird situation. Not quite sure what was all going on with that. I know the Warlord guys have a lot of events, especially at this time of year. Like right now, this weekend, they're doing their Warlord Games convention in Oklahoma City. So that was what all that Gangs of Rome stuff was for. All the stuff on the mosaic tile bases. I think I might have been painting that during the last podcast. I'm sure I was painting that during the last podcast, actually. That was kind of fun. That was for years, I'd wanted to do a army, in my invisible air quotes, with a mosaic tile base tableau. And this was 25 miniatures when you total it all up. So to me, that constitutes an army. So I've now actually done an army in mosaic tile bases. But it was kind of fun. I remember the first one that I tried doing years ago, where I actually sculpted and carved each little mosaic tile, and then learned that it would have been actually 10 times easier and far less time consuming to just paint the damn thing onto a base. So ever since, that's how I've done my mosaic tile bases, is just paint the stuff on there. Because, well, at 28 millimeter, if you try carving in those things, now you're looking at a mosaic tile thing that's scaled to someone who's 17 feet tall. You see it with bricks and stuff and different rocks that people try and use, and really they're more like gargantuan boulders or huge cinder blocks as opposed to just bricks.
Right.
Because I know with each round of terrain that I do for the Bolt Action stuff, my bricks are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, because I looked at them and I went, well, okay, these are some big honking bricks here. I mean, like friggin' huge bricks. And it was on my terrain, and then when I went to put something similar on one of my bases, I went, whoa, okay, these bricks are a teensy bit too big. because I see people, what kills me is how many people buy bricks. Now, maybe, I guess that's the one advantage of if you buy bricks, you hope they're scaled appropriately. Now, whereas the ones you make yourself, you're just going to have to kind of measure it out and make sure it sort of matches.
Right.
Which, I mean, that's no big deal. You just put the figure there on your base and you try and line everything up and make sure they're the right size. But yeah, the bricks for terrain, those can get gigantic in a hurry because, well, there's not a miniature standing on it.
Okay, remind me again real quick. I got a little distracted. What bricks are we talking about?
Well, I see at some of these websites they sell little bricks. I don't know what they're made out of, but they're actually small bricks. And obviously historical miniatures use these more, but I do see people with their steampunk, Malifaux, or some...
Oh, so you're talking something along the lines of the... who's the big mold maker? The one that makes all these really badass molds that everyone loves to use.
Well, Happy Seppuku probably has a brick maker thing, but there's a few companies that seem to have... Literally, they call them brick makers. Or yeah. Hearst Arts Mold has those.
Hearst, there we go. That's who I was thinking. Well, Hearst Arts has everything. If you want to build it and it's older, they have a mold for it. They probably have 10 different molds. And Hearst is ridiculously addictive. I have held off ever buying a Hearst mold, but a few of my friends have them. And one, it's almost maddening because, like, if you want to make something large with them, you have to make, like, the same mold 17 times or 20 times or 30 times to make enough parts. But then it'll also require, you have to have, hold on.
I know they have, like, a cathedral, and you'll have to make, just to make the columns, you'll have to cast hundreds and hundreds of these column pieces, and the windows are the same way. But you'll have a cathedral if and when you're done, and you better get the right kind of dental plaster or whatever it is that you're supposed to use.
Yeah, it's like Dentec or something. Don't use plaster of Paris. It's cheaper, but trust me, I've dealt with boards made out of plaster of Paris, and I've dealt with boards made out of dental plaster. The boards that are made out of plaster of Paris, they're both going to weigh a ton. Straight up, they're both going to weigh a ton. But the ones that are made out of plaster of Paris are just going to chip so bad and so easy. I mean, you're still going to chip the dental plaster, but it's a lot sturdier. Now, I have heard of some people messing around with expanding foam.
The great stuff? Yeah, great stuff. That's what that would... Well, maybe they found a way to control it, or maybe now there's different kinds.
Well, they spray it in the mold, and then they use a scrape real quick to scrape off so it's after it expands a little bit, but it's not quite dry. They'll scrape it, or they'll use a large razor blade and cut the tops off of it, and then pop them out of the mold.
That would certainly cut down on that weight problem, and I don't think you'd have as much of a air bubble issue either.
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely a viable solution there. Because I know someone, he was trying to do just a Blood Bowl pitch with those. And this was nothing elaborate. It was going to be like for Street Bowl or something. So he just wanted to make dugouts with a few arched doors, maybe at a few sconces or something like that. But he had hundreds of pieces already cast. And unless you're going to buy 20 of the same mold, that's something when I try to cast my own things, yeah, I'll realize I better make at least 2 molds of something, because that I may need a ton of. And even when I'm just making my own bases, I'll say, okay, I better make 3 molds of this, or I'm going to have to cast a million things at once. So by the time this one thing that I need 20 of is dry, I can cast 20 other individual things. That's the other, casting when you're trying to cast multiple parts like that. everything always sounds, yeah, this is cool, and then you realize, well, wait a second. Kind of like sculpting, that's why we don't do it, because you would need to sculpt 20 things, just like I paint hundreds of things. Sculptors don't sit there and work on one thing. Maybe they can in a digital form, but in the days of green stuff, you might have had 40 different miniatures. You put a dab of green stuff here, leave it. Because, man, the law, there was some kind of supreme gravitic attraction from your finger to whatever was freshly sculpted. Because, man, you'd smash that thing. You'd say, it's nowhere near where I'm going to sculpt. I can get away with sculpting this one other little... I just smushed it. It was inevitable. So whenever we'd sculpt anything, we'd do a part of it and say, all right, that's it for sculpting today. We're done. And then we realized that wasn't terribly efficient. So that's kind of how the painting went out over the sculpting. Enjoy the heck out of it, just never get to do it anymore.
Right. Got to make that money. Oh. Yeah, so Splat Attack. That's the new one from IDW. It actually, I'm not going to lie, it looks fun.
I think I just saw that on the Models Workshop Facebook page today.
Yeah, because they have since it's IDW, they have the license for Ninja Turtles. So as a Kickstarter exclusive, they have the Ninja Turtles that you can add to the Splat Attack game. But I'm not going to lie, the miniatures in this game don't look bad. And it's like SpongeBob. And, okay, so let me head over. I just saw something. Ross, of course, who works for IDW, he said he'd come on the podcast many, many moons ago. I need to see if he's still interested in coming on, because he's went from being a smaller player in the industry to working at IDW now. I'd love to have him on. Not gonna lie, yeah. I'm not even gonna lie. The Kickstarter Ninja Turtles for Splat look really cool. Donatello has frickin' pizza on his bow staff, and Leonardo isn't wielding swords. He's wielding Ninja Turtle ice cream pops.
Oh, that's why Kathy was looking for those in the store.
Yes, apparently there's a special limited release of the Ninja Turtle ice cream pops from back in the 90s or 80s even, and they're out again, and it's partially because of this.
Yeah, that's what she must have been looking for in the store. Yes, okay.
Okay, so
sense.
You get the 4 Ninja Turtles, you get the 4 Hey Arnold characters, which look like your typical Hey Arnold. You have the 4 SpongeBob, and it's Squidward, Patrick, what's her name, Sally, the squirrel, and then SpongeBob, of course. And then you have Invader Zim, then you have the Rugrats. So you get 16 miniatures plus the Ninja Turtles and a whole bunch of really cool tokens. There's a Reptar expansion. I don't know if that's an add-on or if it's... I'm going to have to go look. Which Reptar expansion looks pretty cool too. And so far, stretch goals, they have uncovered the Ickis, the Cat Dog, and then Rocco, and they've announced the next few. And they've also... the next one is Oblina, then you have Cliff and Shriek from Cat Dog, Heifer, and then there's Angry Beavers. They have a social media stretch goal.
Oh, nobody likes Angry Beavers.
Angry Beavers. But basically, you just move around the board and you try to... It's... For anyone who's played the... Oh, what the heck is that game called for Nintendo and Switch? The one with the ink, where you try to cover your enemy's territory. But it's you try to splat by throwing ink or gunk at your opponent and covering all of their areas. And once you cover all of their areas, I honestly, it's basically a big ass food fight, and you're trying to cover your opponent with gunk. And I think once, and then you try to gain cool points, and then basically after that you win. For $60, which I think is over now, it will definitely be over by the time this podcast goes. But so that was the early bird special, and I like the way they did the early bird. I thought this was the best early bird that I've seen. It wasn't based on the number of pledges; it was based on a time limit. So if you backed it in the first 48 hours, you were able to get the early bird price, and that was for the deluxe version and the normal version. But if you back it after the first 48 hours, then you get it for the more expensive price. I thought that was actually really cool, because that means the first 200 people who are sitting there, and, because the website likes to crash when big Kickstarters launch and yada, 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 it just makes it a lot easier, because I backed the early bird special, but you get the Splat Attack core box, which is the 16 miniatures and all the cards and all the board pieces. You do get the Reptar Rampage expansion, which is a real big dinosaur. I don't even know what TV series he's from. You get the 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with all of their stuff, and then you get 10 Teenage Mutant Ninja Tutor food cards as well, which I'm assuming is going to be a lot of pizza-related stuff. And it's $70 for the non-early bird version, and you get all of that stuff. Then they had the 5 to 8 player deluxe bundle, which I was really tempted to pick up, but it was $85 for the early bird, $95 for the other. And for that, you get all the stuff I mentioned previous. You get another set of 3 punch boards, 4 game tokens, and I think you get some additional. They don't list them here, but I'm pretty sure you get some additional bases too. Some additional base cards. It doesn't list it on here, but if you look in the detail portion, it actually does. So it just makes it, it's the same number of miniatures, you just get a bigger playing board where you can actually sit down and make the game bigger. I will say that the game looks like it would be fun. It doesn't look like something that you could play 1,000 times and it would be great. Splatoon, that's the game I was thinking of from Nintendo. It kind of reminds me of Splatoon, except with food. It doesn't look like a game that you could play 100 times and would be like, oh, it's great every single time. It looks like it would get old after a while. But for $70, you're getting 21 miniatures, not including the unlocked ones. You're getting 21 miniatures, and a lot of these miniatures are actually really cool looking, and they're for products that they're not generic. You're getting SpongeBob SquarePants, you're getting Invader Zim, you're getting Cat Dog, you're getting Ninja Turtles. You're getting some pretty big licenses all smashed together into this one box with some pretty good looking and pretty fun looking miniatures. So if you like Nick cartoons, which I do, I don't know all of these licenses, but I've at least heard of all of them. You're getting a ton of different licenses. They're going to unlock a ton. It wouldn't be surprising if by the end of this, you're going to get like 30 to 36 miniatures for $70. That doesn't include shipping, but it's like 12 to 15 to the US and Canada, 7 to 14 euros to Europe, $13 to $16 to Australia and New Zealand. Asia is 15 to 20 and 18 to 35 for the rest of the world, which actually for shipping is not bad. Especially to Australia. That Australian shipping is pretty effing cheap. So, I mean, $70, you're going to end up paying $2 to $2.50 per miniature. And they're all big name licensed miniatures. Worst case scenario, get some friends together and be like, hey, you like SpongeBob, or you like Invader Zim, or blah, blah, blah. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that I have kids and we like playing board games, I would literally just bought this just for the Ninja Turtles, and sold the rest of it to someone else, or pieced it out and been like, who wants SpongeBob? Who wants Invader Zim? Who wants Cat Dog? Who wants the big Reptar dinosaur? And just sold it to everyone else, because if it did not have the Ninja Turtles in it, I would probably not have bought this. Just for the simple fact, and it wasn't the fact that it was too expensive, it's just, honestly, I have a lot of board games that I'm already behind on getting caught up and playing. So kind of didn't need to add another one. But the fact that it had Ninja Turtles in it, and they were really cool. And it had a couple other licenses that I really, really enjoyed mixed into this. And the miniatures look good. And it has game attached. That's the way I look at it. I'm going to pay $250 for some miniatures that I'm going to dig. And it has a game with expansions and every other thing already there. It's like, okay, sweet. It's like the Harry Potter bullshit. From my understanding, everything about the game portion of it looks like it sucks. But the miniatures are amazing, and they're actually not badly priced. I seriously, honestly think Knight did not want to make a board game, so they half-assed the board game as much as possible just to put out some really cool Harry Potter miniatures. I'll swear up and down that's what they did, because it really looks like that's what they did.
Yeah, I haven't even seen any of that stuff since the first day people were talking about that. I don't know, a couple of months ago, I think that was, when all the great stir was created.
Oh, they... Frickin' Knight fucked that campaign up so bad. They...
Because it wasn't actually a Kickstarter, right? It was just something they did. It was just like their own release or something that they did.
Okay, so yeah, it was them just releasing it. It was originally going to be a Kickstarter, then it wasn't a Kickstarter, then it was going to be a... it was screwed up. That's what it was. It was just straight up screwed up. The entire thing was just a big clusterfuck. More than likely, what we're guessing happened was the Warner Brothers said, "Hey, we don't want you to use Kickstarter for our product." Maybe because they just had Batman and they didn't want to something to compete with the Batman Kickstarter that was going on. I don't know the logistics. I do know that they said they were going to go traditional at first, and then all of a sudden it went from being traditionally published to a Kickstarter, which pissed off a lot of people. And then they switched it back from being a traditional, a Kickstarter back to traditional. So it was just like a lot of wishy-washy back and forth. And then when they put it out, the Kickstarter was so poorly done. Like, the initial prices, which were outrageously expensive, but it included all the VAT. Well, people in the United States don't pay VAT. So everyone in the U.S. who saw this, and it was like $500 for the everything package, and they were like, you know what, screw you. I'm not going to get into that. And then there was a whole bunch of exclusives that shouldn't have been exclusives. Then they didn't include Dumbledore in the initial release, and then there was such an uprising that they finally threw Dumbledore in for free on all packages. I mean, like, people got pissed, and I understand. How the hell it was almost as bad of a move as when they made Neville an exclusive character for the second tier for $200 and something. And Neville is probably one of the main characters other than the big three. It was just bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, and it was just... I'm sure they got some good numbers, but I mean, I threw money at it. I pre-ordered Voldemort because it was a pre-order exclusive, and I loved the sculpt, so I had to get it. But honestly, it was just so badly done. But anyways, back to a nicely and well done Kickstarter. Splat, I honestly give this one a solid A. You have a big company that's backing it, IDW. They've never failed. They're a huge company. Their games division is relatively new, so that's why they still utilize Kickstarter. And I actually own several IDW games that I've gotten off of Kickstarter. Their models are better than typical board game quality, but they're not miniature painter grade quality, if that makes sense. They're good quality, but they're not something that you would expect from like a $15 miniature or $20 miniature. You are getting $2 miniatures. They're better than what you would consider for a $2 miniature, though. they're designed to be injected in a single piece, so keep that in mind. So they're not like the best quality, but for $250 a mini, they're definitely better than Bones. I'll put it like that. And they can be cleaned up nicely. So it's a solid A. It's a good company. It's reputable. Honestly, $2 to $250 a miniature. It's a solid price. The game actually looks entertaining. Replay value might be marginal, but
yeah, that was some. Wow, it was Lords of Waterdeep. That was a game that, after I played it a few times and watched people played it, it seemed like after a while that game could really get to be repetitive. That it would be, you would know, okay, well, this guy has this character, whatever. That's why they're trying to build this thing. And there's just, even with the expansion, and we played it with the expansions most time, and it just started to be sort of the same game over and over again. And I wasn't sure. Obviously, every gaming group is different. And other people they played it when they played it more than, say, 4 or 5 times. Some people said yeah, other people said no. So I don't really know which it is. I haven't actually played that in a while now, but it seemed to me that you could end up with it being sort of the same thing over and over again.
Oh, okay. So I glanced at Facebook. I have to bring this up. It has nothing to do with miniatures, but it does have a part of my childhood dying. Actually, no, this isn't a part of my childhood dying. This is just... So, they decided to reboot Thundercats, I think for the 3rd time, maybe 4th. And I grew up with the Thundercats. And they were a great cartoon. And then they brought them out again. They changed the style, whatever. I get it. Being a Ninja Turtles fan, I'm used to them changing the style. But now they've rebooted. It's called Thundercats Roar. And if you haven't heard about this travesty of a reboot yet, you seriously need to go check it out. Google Thundercat Roar. Go watch the trailer for it. And I seriously wish I could say that I was joking when I say that is the actual trailer for the new show that's coming out for Thundercats. It is... What the hell? Ah. Hold on. Technical difficulty.
Yeah, I don't remember. I never saw any of that stuff. Well, we didn't have cable, and I think most of those things were Nickelodeon type shows or whatever. So,
it's not Nick anymore. It's Cartoon Network now. But yeah, I think it was Nick back in the day. I felt like something went into my cast and started stabbing me. Ow. But it is... The cartoon style on it is so fucking ridiculous that I really seriously... And the guy who made it is trying to say that he is a fan of the old show, and it's like, no, you're not. Because you would not have created this travesty of a... Oh, it was so bad. I saw it and I was like... I had to go double check to make sure it was real. I was like, is this real? Oh, yeah, it's real. Wow, that's bad. Yeah, I saw that today. I was like, I cannot believe this. I cannot believe this. I cannot believe this. This is horrible. All right, folks, we are an hour 20 in on this episode, and I do apologize for not having a Just the Facts this last couple Fridays. Peter and I have just been super busy, me with the broken leg, and he's had some stuff going on over across the pond. It's not going anywhere. It's just, I broke my leg, and I was stoned for the last week and laying down on the bed and with my foot up. And like I said, even coming down for this podcast has been kind of rough. So I am going to have to wrap this up, pun intended, and get off of my foot and try to crawl up the stairs out of my studio. Because my studio's in the basement. It was fun getting down here. I scooted down on my butt. Skirt, skirt, skirt.
Yeah, it's gonna scrape more going up. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Definitely not. All right, so thank you, everyone, for joining us on Models Workshop After Hours. If you haven't yet, make sure to head over to facebook.com/The Models Workshop. You can also check us out on the web at www.models-workshop.com, or also at YouTube/Models, or youtube.com/Models Workshop. And also, if you're hanging around on the interwebs, we have a discussion group on Facebook. Just search up Models Workshop Discussion Group. Jim hangs out there. I hang out there. Yeji and the rest of the crew are there too. And you can post up minis, models, just show off or ask for help or any of that stuff. So thank you for hanging out with us. Apologize that it's a short podcast. The UK crew actually published a special edition episode 3 today to fill in for our Just the Facts that we didn't get out. And it covers the Hellboy. Well, by today, I mean Friday. This will come out on Friday or Monday. So 2 days ago, they published. Yeah. So they had an interview with Ronnie. There was some technical difficulties, but they were able to talk to him about the Hellboy Kickstarter. And so they have a lot of great information over there about that. So I would definitely check it out if you haven't already. And once again, our publication schedules are Mondays. We have an after hours. We alternate whether it's the US version or the UK version. And on Fridays, once we get back on track, and I'm able to record, which I do believe Monday or Tuesday, him and I are going to be recording like 5 or 6 or 7 episodes. So we should be good for the next month or two. And the cool thing is I'll be on my real setup, so it won't be all wonky sounding like me walking around the mall, which is what I typically do when we do it Just the Facts, or when I'm walking in the woods. So, and for anyone who's ever wondered why my audio for the podcast and the Just the Facts are different, the reason is because I am on a professional setup doing this podcast, Just the Facts. I'm usually walking in the woods on my voice recorder with a lapel mic, or I'm walking around the mall, or I'm sitting in the truck even. I've done a couple of them driving down the road with my lapel mic on and talking to Peter on Skype. So that's why there's a difference in the sound quality, just to give y'all a heads up. But anything you want to wrap up with, Jim?
Oh, just hope you feel better, get on the mend, and I hope people kind of find a equilibrium for themselves as far as the brushes and the paints, and just don't get so hung up in that they get paralyzed and they don't do anything. Because I've seen that too. That's kind of the worst result, is just maybe just take what you got and see how far that takes you.
And also, don't be afraid to ask either. Like, if you have a question about, hey, what does this paint mean? Like, what is an ink? What's the difference between an ink and a wash? What's the difference between a foundation paint and a layer paint? Ask. Because trust me, I was there when I first started off. I could not tell you the difference between an ink and a wash, and that was something that I learned through talking with my buddies. We didn't have the internet back then, or it was a very basic version of the internet. We would literally go to hobby shops and we would talk shop, and that's how we would trade tips and tricks and everything else. Y'all kids nowadays are spoiled, able to Google stuff and find answers and all that stuff. Back in my day, you just had to go and talk to people in person to learn all your tips and tricks. Yeah, young'uns, get off my damn grass.
Get off the lawn.
All right, so thank you, folks. Gonna go head upstairs and take some ibuprofen and lay down and probably go to sleep. All right, thanks, guys, for tuning in. Bye.
Catch you later.